Remy Berringer, France. Or Berringer, I don't know how to pronounce it. Sen så när de har gjort klart programmet, då brukar jag bara filma in den. Ja. Och så zoomar man in modellen när den stannar. Och så tillbaka. vägen. Pilsriken, John.
Ställ från Akim för när man har så. Because our bottom is so good. We have to You have to take care of the worn out work. Broken has nothing to do with it. Not strictly you.
That's why he likes it. He just sends me 200 engineers.
And all you do is just pay for the parts.
Yes, he basically makes the bottom ends built together and top ends built together. That's what he basically does. And I check what I want to check. I check all the plays and all the parallelities and things like that. Oh, sorry.
David Fitzgerald. Andrei Jasenko.
Alexander Schreck from Slovakia, I think.
Walker, second final.
was niet te geloven. Er waren een stuk of 20. Die zaten gewoon zo op het veld zo weg te draaien. Ik heb nog nooit zoveel ooievaars bij elkaar gezien.
Stikt hij niet van?
Ja.
Een
Een hoop ooievaars. Ja, zeker.
Lekker achter de microfoon.
Ja, een stuk of 20. Nou, zoveel heb ik er dan niet gezien. Gistermiddag waren er een stuk of 5, 6. Ja.
Next competitor. Serena from France. Gilbert Beringer from France.
Veimola. Maxim Korsov from Russia.
You don't send me the airport. I want to buy something in the airport.
You want to buy Horvey?
Yeah, I want you to buy all the
Air oil spray. Air oil.
next one is Maurizio Milani from Italy.
Yes, I think
He is
so.
leading
They're buying two of
the
them.
junior champs at the moment.
Oh no. There's still some left. Oh, bless you. Thank you. Yeah.
He is actually the best of the Italian flyers. Even though he's a junior, he's the best one.
Sweden.
Sweden. Yeah. I'm part Swedish, I think. I'm actually though.
You are?
Yeah, either that or French, something like that.
When did you start to fly control line, and how did you get started?
I started flying control line in first grade, but it wasn't very good. Like I flew like maybe 3 flights a year up until fifth grade, and then I started competing in I don't know, it was seventh grade or so, and then started competing pretty heavily in eighth grade.
How did you get into it?
My dad flew them when he was a kid, and they had a hobby shop, and he bought one for me and said, "Hey, let's go build this and fly it." And it was alright. I flew in the backyard on Dacron 30-foot lines.
Okay. Yeah. Are there any people that you look up to and learn from, especially?
Well, the way I've been flying today, that Italian kid, but I look up to Dave Fitzgerald and all the U.S. team members, especially Rob Gruber, too. He's a former junior world champ.
How old were you the first time you participated in a competition for the first time?
13.
13.
I had it in my head.
Okay. When was that?
That was 2001. It was like 4 days after 9/11 or something. That's the only reason I can remember it.
Was it the nationals or the Nats?
No, it was a half-A contest. Little airplanes this big.
Okay.
Little Reed Valve 049 engines.
Okay.
I got third.
Do you remember when the first time you participated in the Nats?
Just participated in the Nats in 4 years.
Like how old were you? Can't remember that.
I'd have to say it was about 4 years ago.
Okay.
4 years ago, I got second in senior. I lost to the world champion.
Okay.
Yeah.
When was the first time you won a major competition?
Major, I won the Nats last year, so that was pretty.
What is it that you think is so fascinating about control line compared to radio control, for example, or other line control?
Probably because I'm good at it. Yeah. Plain and simple. I love to compete, and I can compete at pretty high levels with my phone. So I enjoy the competition. I do so many different types of competitions. I just enjoy stuff. I don't know. Let's go and try to win.
You apply radio control to
I don't like it. I can't compete with it because I ain't good at it.
What is the big difference between radio control and
It's 3D. Like you got this way and this way, and this way and this way. It's not just this way. That's like controlling it up and down. RC's like.
maybe it's the thing that you have contact with the plane
Yeah.
and line control.
And you can feel it pulling on you.
Yeah. That's yeah. Let's see where this is at. I lost it. Do you have any special line control memory? Like a good memory or a very special memory?
It's always a good feeling when you burn in one that you know is the best you could do at that time. I don't know if I have a single memory, but I do remember getting dunked when I won the Nats last year, like Gatorade, or like water jug. They dumped water on me. I remember that. I don't remember too much about the flight.
Okay. Yeah. How much do you practice?
Depends on how much I have to work.
Yeah.
But last year I burned about 20 gallons, which I don't know what that is in metric at all.
Like how many times a week do you fly?
I put about 20 flights a week, about 5 a night.
I guess that's why you so good.
Yeah. Well, I have a field on the way home from work, so I keep my plane in the car all day at work, and then come home and fly off to school.
So you're still into school, like college? Or...
I'm gonna be in college next year. I graduated last year.
And what would you say to a beginner who is like totally new to flying control? Who is,
I would
just
say
start
get somebody that can help them.
Yeah.
If you get somebody that can help you, then you really will excel. That's what I would say. And get good equipment. You can't get any better if you're flying with bad equipment. If you get a good setup, then you only can grow.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Good luck.
We're standing here with Bob Hunt, a really big legend in the world of aerobatics. So, when did you first start to fly control line, and how did you get started?
Well, that's very interesting. My father started flying model airplanes in 1918. So all of the people who he knew through his life were model airplane flyers. So by the time I came along in 1947, all of his friends were model airplane flyers, and model airplanes was just a way of life in our family. So they tell me that I started flying in 1949 at the age of 22 months of age, and I flew in a contest in our country that was a youngest contestant event, and I won because I was younger than the other contestants. So I can honestly say I've been flying and winning in competition and control line since the 1940s, and I'm only 58.
Okay. How old were you the first time you participated in a competition?
Well, again, like I said, it was 22 months of age, but that was not really that was more of a fun thing.
How did you manage to do that when you were 20 months?
I don't remember it, but I think the first significant competition that I do remember was around 1956 or 57. I flew combat, junior combat, and I flew combat for many years.
Were you good at it?
No. I won a few contests, but not at the world level, no.
Okay. Who have you been looking up to and learned from?
Well, that's a long list of people. Again, my father was my main hero in my life because he taught me so much, and he was such a gifted engineer and a very patient man, and he loved modeling as much as I did. But other people I looked up to were Red Reinhardt, a very famous control line stunt flyer from the early 1950s, who worked for my father for 36 years. And he lived with my family, so he was like a big brother to me. And he was an exquisite craftsman. He could put wood together as well or better than anyone I've ever met in my life. So I learned all my techniques, or at least the theory of technique of building from watching Red build. But other people who had a significant effect on me were Larry Scarinzi. I don't know if you know him or not. Very famous modeler in our country. And later on, Bill Simons, and I think probably the most significant person when it comes to flying that had an effect on me was Gene Schaefer. Gene was, to my way of thinking, the most gifted pilot I've ever seen. He had a tendency to get nervous in the big contests, and so he never showed as well as he might have. But in our country, he was pretty much revered as one of the best pilots of all time. And more than just a pilot, he was a competitor. And he taught me how to think about competition, how to use the skills that I had as tools, and then to fly in competition as a result. So Gene Schaefer, and of course later on, Bill Werwich has been not only a good instructor for me, but also my best friend.
When was the first time you won a major competition?
Well, the first major competition I won was the 1976 Nationals in our country. I won that after having backed over my airplane accidentally that morning with my car. And I broke, the tire rolled up onto the muffler and snapped the side of the engine off and broke the side of the airplane. And we spent most of the day fixing the airplane, and at the next to last flight of the day, I flew and won the competition. So it was pretty dramatic day for me, you know. And then of course the next major competition after that was the World Championships in England in 1978.
And after that, how many times have you won the World Champs?
Well, I won the World Championships just once,
Yeah.
but I took the silver medal in 1980 behind Les McDonald by 0.2%.
Oh,
It was pretty close to it.
that was close.
It was very close, yeah.
Yeah.
I won 2 rounds and Les won 2 rounds, but just by that much more. He's a good flyer, though.
Yeah. What is it that you think is so fascinating about line control and stunt
Well,
aerobatics?
you know, I fly all three disciplines. I fly free flight, I fly control line, and I fly radio control. I flew radio control aerobatics at the national level in my country. And I like all three disciplines. But to me, comparing radio control to control line is much like comparing swimming to diving. They're two sports that happen to use a lot of the same equipment, but they're totally different sports. And I like control line because I can feel the model. To me, it's more like full-scale aviation, which I've done a lot of. My father used to manage an airport. So to me, feeling the life of the airplane through the lines and the analog component in control line, to me is much more enjoyable than essentially moving a cursor around the sky with a control stick. So I like control line because of the challenge. It has a limited amount of space to fly in, a hemisphere. And no matter how bad the weather gets, you still have that same limited amount of sky to fly in. So the challenge is great.
Have you been doing anything else besides your line control activities, like for a living?
Yes, well, I'm the editor of Model Aviation Magazine in the United States, which is the official publication of the Academy of Model Aeronautics. And before that, I was the editor of Flying Models Magazine for 17 years. So I've done that most of my life. But I also have another hobby or another sport I'm very much involved in, and that's motorcycling. So I've kind of split my time between model airplanes and motorcycles, and I'm the site coordinator for one of the 65 motorcycle safety training centers in my state. And I'm a state licenser. So I teach people to ride motorcycles, and then I license them if they pass our course. So I do that 35 hours a week, plus my 40-hour-a-week full-time job. So it's difficult to find time to fly.
That's a full schedule.
Full schedule. Plus I run 2 other companies on the side, modeling companies.
Okay. I know you've been constructing many model airplanes. Which one are you most satisfied with? Which one do you think is the best model airplane that you've constructed and built?
Well, obviously the one I won the world championships with is dear to my heart. But do I think it's the best one? Well, it had the best result. I think, to me, my philosophy of model airplane design is that the numbers, the moment arms and the force arrangements and all that, I liken them or compare them to a mannequin that you put clothes on in the store window. The numbers are like a mannequin, and you can put any kind of clothing or shape of the model airplane on you want to. So to me, a good model airplane is not necessarily a Genesis or a Saturn or a USA-1. It's a set of numbers that work well. And of course, each model airplane you build, if it's the same set of numbers, it will have similar characteristics because the force arrangements. But each one has its own personality. So you could build 10 or 12 airplanes of the same set of numbers, and they'll all fly a little bit different, and one will be excellent and some others will be below. So I would have to say my 1972 Genesis, the 35 size airplane, was perhaps the best flying airplane I've ever owned. The best result was with the 1978 airplane, which was also excellent.
Okay, well, which kind of airplane was that?
The Genesis? That was a 720 square inch, it's hard for me to relate to meters and things, airplane. It weighed 60 ounces and had the first Schnurley, I believe, to fly at the World Championships, or maybe the second, with my own homemade wooden prop. And it was, again, my own design aesthetics. But the actual mannequin of numbers were Billy Simons's from his Scorpio.
Is it the same plane that you're using now?
No, not at all. No, the airplane I'm using now has the clothing or the aesthetics of the Genesis, but slightly more curved, more European styled, I think. And but it's a completely new set of numbers that my son Robbie used on his Geostar back in 1994, and I like that. I like somewhat smaller airplanes. I don't like airplanes that pull very hard, and I have a rationale for that. To me, Rembrandt could not have painted his masterpieces if someone were trying to pull the brush out of his hand. And the same thing here. It's hard to be delicate and make perfect shapes when the airplane's pulling too hard. So now I tend to like smaller, lighter airplanes that don't pull so hard. So this airplane has the aesthetics of the Genesis, but a new set of numbers.
Yeah, and you're also using an electric motor.
Yes, I've decided to go with electric for many reasons. One is I've always preferred innovation and technology and development over competition.
Okay.
I mean, competition is fun, but for me, developing the airplane and seeing how far we can advance the technology has always been the challenge. So electric, to me, now that the new batteries have come along and the superior motors, it's come of age. And I like the idea, but mainly I did it because of my schedule of work. I can only fly early in the morning. And now I can fly a quarter mile from my house at 6 o'clock in the morning.
And then it has to be quiet.
It has to be quiet.
Yeah.
No one even knows I'm there.
Yeah.
So I can practice a little bit.
Do you think there is a future for electric control line models?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think we've shown this week, the four of us who flew here, I think we showed that it's very viable. It's still in its infancy, and there's a lot of work to do, but the power is there, and the contour of the power is there, and it's very adjustable. So yes, I feel that within 4 or 5 years, I'm not going to predict it will take over, but I predict you're going to see 40 or 50% of the people at least flying electric.
Do you have any special control line memory?
Well, yes. Again, it goes back to 1976 at the Nationals when in the morning I had the best flight of the day, except I overran the time. And it cost me first to almost last. And then it started to rain. And I went back to my room to get the model dry and clean up. And when I went back to the field, I forgot to put my model in the car. And I backed over the model. And I broke it very badly. And all of my friends came together to help me reassemble the airplane. And then on the next to last flight of the day, I won the championship. So that's a very special memory.
Yeah.
But what I have to say that would be second in my memory to the day my son flew his first pattern. Yeah. And flying with my son for many years was the highlight of my life because he won the junior championship once and then the senior championship 5 times in a row. And we flew in the Walker Cup, which is the last day of finals of our nationals. We flew in that 5 years in a row together, and no one's ever done that before. So that would have to be my most cherished memory in controlling, flying with my son.
Okay. What do you think is the hardest thing when it comes to control line? The hardest thing?
Well, I think the dedication. I think the fact that today not many people seem to be willing to put in the effort and the dedication and the stick-to-itiveness that's required to become proficient at this. I think today a lot of people, especially in my country, I find one thing's too easy. If it's not easy, they're not willing to do it. And I think there's a value in working hard to achieve something and then achieving it. I think a lot of people are missing that component in their life because they don't have to work hard or they're not willing to work hard. And those who do work hard find they get more out of life, I think. And a lot of people are cheating themselves out of what life has to offer by not trying harder.
Okay. How much do you practice?
Not enough. Which is one of the reasons I went to electric, so I can practice more. And my son is always yelling at me because I don't practice enough. He wants me to practice more. So in the past, when I won the Worlds, I took 2 months off of work and I flew all day, every day. And the result was I won.
Yeah.
And again, I find that in life, those who put out the most effort get the most in return. So I can't be mad when I don't put out the effort if I don't get the result.
Have you been training a lot before this World Championship?
Unfortunately, no, because the sequencer that I'm using in my electric system was supposed to have been done and ready for testing in December, and we didn't get it until late June. So the airplane was ready, and I was ready, and the sequencer was not. So I did not get a lot of practice.
Okay.
And consequently, I didn't do very well.
Okay. Sure. What would you say to a beginner who is totally new to line control?
Well, I would say if they have a passion for this, to learn all they can, read and study magazines, articles, study DVDs and videos, and to also use their imagination to not just do what has been done before, but to use their own intellect to carry it forward. If you see something you feel could be better, try it. You know, don't just do what everyone else has done. My father used to tell me, when he was a very brilliant engineer, and he got mad at me because he would see me building airplanes the way other people build them. And he'd say, "Why do you do it that way?" And I'd say, "Because it's always been done that way." He says, that's not a very good reason. So he said, if you can think of something that's better, lighter, stronger, more accurate, try it. And that's how you carry the sport forward.
Yeah.
You know. So I would say to children who are, or anyone of any age getting into this, to learn from those who have done it before. But do not be afraid to try things that you feel are logical and would work well for you.
Yeah.
Never be afraid to experiment. That would be my advice to new people coming in, of any age.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you think is the best way to get young people into control line?
Well, that's a difficult thing right now because there's so much available, especially for youth today. There's so many things available to them, and so many things for them to try. And life has gotten more complicated. And of course, you have education, and that's something you can't put aside education for model airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can incorporate model airplanes into education, as you are, I think that's a good thing. To me, I really believe that the electric is going to bring control line back into urban areas, especially in our country, where now it's been pushed out into the suburbs and into fields where people can't see it anymore. And if we can do it quietly and cleanly in parks again, I believe that we're going to see an increase in activity. Will it ever be what it was in the 50s and 60s? I doubt that, because there's so much for people to do today. You know, but I think we can to a degree revive this sport by taking it back to people and letting them see it.
Yeah.
We can't expect them to come out and search us out. We have to go to them and show them what's available, and then allow them to try it.
Yeah.
You know, we have to be a little bit more forthright in offering our skills to others and going to them and saying, "Here, try this. You might like this," and rather than waiting for them to come to us.
Yeah, let's hope there's a lot of people that want to start flying control line.
Let's hope. I think that, again, once people try this,
Yeah.
I think a large degree will continue to do it.
Yeah.
In our country, there's a thing called the EAA Fly-In. Have you heard of this out in Oshkosh, Wisconsin? It's the Home Built Association.
Okay.
And they have a Young Eagles program. And during their week-long or 2-week-long air show out there, they have two control line circles set up, teaching people to fly. And they teach 2,500 kids to fly over 2 weeks every year.
Oh.
So we need more of that. And then we need to follow up. We need to get their names and addresses. And then we need to get those addresses out to the clubs in their area and invite them to come out and fly.
Yeah.
So if we get a spark of interest, we need to follow up on that spark. We need to do some work ourselves. We can't expect people to come to us. We have to show them what we're doing is not only fun, but it's challenging, it's rewarding. This hobby has so many good things about it. It teaches craftsmanship. It teaches patience. It teaches sportsmanship. And certainly, and you can see it here this week, it teaches brotherhood. And I think those are all good values and things that we should strive to promote.
Yeah.
So that's my thought on that.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is my Genesis Extreme design, which was originally powered by a glow motor. Originally, it had a Rojet 40 with a tune pipe, and then it had a PA-40R ultralight Merlin engine, also with a tune pipe. And I decided to put an electric motor in it, and I'm very happy I did. This design is, the shape of the design is basically my Genesis series, with some modified wingtips and certainly a little bit more modified fuselage shape. The older ones had more straight lines. This one does not have a straight line anywhere on the fuselage, but it appears to be straight in flight. So this is a more European styled airplane, I think, with more curves to it and a little deeper, and I like it very much. The actual aerodynamics of this airplane are from my son's Geostar, with which he placed third in junior at the 1994 World Championships in Shanghai, and also won our nationals in 1995. And I like that airplane very much. It's a little smaller than the airplane I have been flying, and I tend to like smaller airplanes better because they don't pull so hard. And I have a saying that I don't believe Rembrandt could have painted his masterpieces if someone were trying to pull the brush out of his hand while he were painting. And I feel the same way about control line flying. Excessive line tension makes you hold on too tight, and you can't be fine with your inputs, in my opinion. So at any rate, this airplane has a built-up wing where all of the other Genesis models had foam wings. And this is built in a system I call the lost foam process, whereby we cut a core up into rib shapes, and then we use those rib shapes to generate balsa ribs, and then in turn we build the wing in the lower cradle half from which the core was cut, because the cradle is just as accurate a negative representation of the wing shape as the core is a positive. So you have a perfect building platform to build a built-up wing and make a perfect replica of a foam core. So it's very accurate and tends to be a little lighter, and I think the light wingtips tend to work better in turbulence. They don't move around so much. I have an AXI 282610 motor in this airplane. It's powered with a Thunder Power 4S2P 4200 milliamp hour battery pack. It has a Castle Creations Phoenix 45 speed controller and our own design sequencer. And at this World Championships, there are 4 electric models, and all of them have eloquent solutions to the problem. They're all a little different, but they all have worked very, very well. So, a matter of fact, last night, Bruno Van Hock and I traded airplanes and flew, and I think we found our airplanes are extremely similar in power contour and even flying characteristics. So that was quite eye-opening. So at any rate, this model also has a fully adjustable control system. The push rod length is adjustable, and the elevator to flap ratio is adjustable. I'm using a Bill Lee 11.5-inch diameter 5.1 pitch prop, and I'm very happy with it. It flies very well. Again, it's virtually a brand new system, and I think we're going to see great gains in this in the next couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you.